Artificial intelligence is the new technology that we need to grapple with as a society. A new school in Arizona has recently opened that plans to replace its teachers with artificial intelligence. Watch as Nelta and I discuss the merits of artificial intelligence and what needs to happen within our school systems so that they're preparing children for the world that they will encounter upon graduation. So have you seen, like, in the last week, I think it is, I saw in the news, there's been a lot of talk about teachers are actually starting to get replaced by AI now. Have you seen this?
I mean, I've heard the talk, but I've not really been watching any recent videos about it or anything.
Okay. So there's a school that's called Unbound Academy. And what it is, it's a charter school in Arizona. From what I've seen, they have other branches in other parts of the United States. And what they do is they've set up where, like, 2 hours a day, the students get instruction on the core stuff like your math, your sciences, your academics. And then the rest of the day, they focus on sort of life skills like budgeting and collaborating and those kinds of things. And so they take kind of a personalized learning approach to education. But what it is it's like during 2020, we got really into online learning. And I think most people would agree it didn't work very well. But the idea is that the kids are basically on these online programs. There's an artificial intelligence that, like, guides them through the programs. And then the adults in the building are kind of they're referred to as guides. And so they're there to provide the emotional support to the kids, the cheerleading, the SEL help to manage behaviors, different things like that. But they don't actually get involved in the direct instruction. And so these guides, from what I've seen, a lot of the articles say that they're not licensed teachers, but I've also seen stuff that says they are. So I'm not quite sure. There's kind of conflicting accounts there. But essentially, whether they're licensed teachers or not, they're not up in front of the classroom teaching, they're not making lesson plans, they're not grading papers. They're kind of just there to help the children while the children go through the learning on their own with the assistance of the AI.
Wow. So, in a case like that, what happens if whatever is going on is not really how the children learn at their optimum and so on? So it means that they just sit through it. There's nobody there who's going to be able to tweak something at any point.
Well, and I would imagine that that's probably part of the role of the guides. Like the AI, I think, monitors everything. But I would imagine if there's a problem, like the technology isn't working or the children just aren't making progress, part of what the guides would do would be to sort of step in that place. I haven't seen specifically, I haven't done a deep dive on it, so I couldn't say, but that would be my guess.
Okay, that's interesting.
And so what do you think? Like, is that a good use of AI? Is that the direction schools should be moving in? Like, do you think this is a good experiment, or do you think that we're making a mistake and giving AI too much control?
I mean, I am a strong believer of using things in moderation. If it's a case where it's introduced incrementally, I mean, I'm not really privy to whatever it is that you saw,
Right.
so I cannot really speak directly to it. But I'm thinking, based on my experience in the classroom, we know that there are benefits to using AI, definitely. I mean, we cannot go around that. My one concern would be introducing it when children are not totally ready, for it.
Yeah.
So if it is gradual, the teacher is there and there's a little bit, injected here and there, you make use of it, at least a fair amount, of contact time during the day, can be supplemented somehow. And maybe based on how the children take it, you can probably increase it and so on. Because, I mean, let's face it, we are living in a world where AI is all around us. AI is there, and the children, they should be able to do things on their own. They should be able to manage with AI,
Yeah.
but just, I don't know, just introducing it too heavily,
Yeah.
at a time, I think may end up doing more harm than good.
Well, that's it. We have to find the balance. AI has been let out of the box. There's no putting it away, there's no hiding it. It's out there now. And realistically, we know that people use it in their everyday. You and I have talked about times when we've used it to help us with little tasks here or there. And so the children, like you said, I mean, they have to learn how to use AI because by the time, I mean, you're talking, I think this school does fourth through eighth grade. So those eighth graders have 4 years before they get out of high school. And in 4 years, I mean, in only the last 3 years, AI has gone from barely working to being exceptional. So give it another 4 years, and you know it's going to be something where you've got to know how to use it. It becomes an essential skill. It's almost like the introduction of the computer. If you were born in the 80s, you were raised with the computer, and by the time you got to the working world, you could use it because they were in all the schools. But if you were born in the 1950s, let's say, computers get introduced when you're 30 years old, and you either learn how to use a computer or you don't get a job.
Yes. Yes.
And so we have to prepare them for that AI. I think we do. It's just a matter of, like you said, finding the right moderation and doing it the right way. You know, I kind of like the idea behind this. The idea is that they want to teach more collaboration, they want to teach more life skills, they want to teach more of the things that children need, right? Like we were talking just the other day, the modern school or the design for our current schools were designed during the industrial age to prepare children to go work in factories. Now, obviously, children aren't working in factories anymore. Those have all been, in the States, they've all been shipped overseas. And down here in the Caribbean, you never really had factories, from what I understand, right? It's more the banana fields and different things like that. Banana, sugar, a lot of farming. So it doesn't make sense for us to prepare children to work in a factory if that's not where they're going to end up. So we do have to sort of change the design of schools to get them to a place where they're truly preparing children for the world that they're going to enter. And so I do. I think the question just is, what does that world look like? And the idea is good. What they propose to want to do with it, I like. It's just a matter of how well does it get implemented. Like we have to look at the data. Is this really effective? Are kids improving? Are we getting better workers out of this? Or is it something where it sounds nice, but in reality, it just doesn't implement well?
Yes, and I think it's a case of, like you mentioned, something that can be very, very effective, but if it is not introduced or used properly, then it just defeats the purpose. Because, I mean, it's all around us, and at my age, I'm almost forced to use it, right? Now, nobody formally introduced it to me where I sat down and got lessons in doing it and,
Yep.
like wet my feet a bit and then see. So I had to find my way around it.
Yep.
I mean, speak to people, come to you,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
if it's a case where, and it's almost like this, it's almost the same thing with the children. If this is just dropped on them, and not done properly, then the results that you would really want to get, I don't think you would necessarily get that. Of course, I mean, out of a bunch, you will get some who will thrive on it, no matter what.
Right.
I mean, we human beings have a way,
Yeah.
of adapting to things.
Yeah.
But there's so much diversity among us, not everybody will be able to take it that way. Some students may end up feeling overwhelmed. Some students may, take the wrong route.
Yep. Well, that's it. We know it's going to get
Yes.
abused, right? It can help us, but if it's doing the job for us, then we're using it wrong. So if the children are going in there and saying, AI, what's 2 plus 2? That's not how you learn how to add.
Yes.
So that's not useful to them.
And a lot of our employers are complaining now. We hear a lot of talk about, children cannot reason anymore. Well, not children, but people.
Right.
People cannot reason anymore. They don't know how to think for themselves. They cannot solve problems. Everything for them has to happen within such a quick time. So they lack the patience, tolerance, all of these things, because of course, AI gives it to us, like just as soon as you snap a
Yeah.
finger and it's right
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
So then they go out there and transfer that same thing to other situations where they're expecting a response right away.
Yeah.
They're expecting results right away. So
Yeah.
the endurance and the perseverance and all of that, we find that this is kind of lacking, when the children are introduced too early to that, or too much of it.
Yeah.
Like it just takes away from the thinking and
Yeah.
critical analysis and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's definitely worse for children because the brain's still developing and so it develops a certain way. But I feel like it even has an impact on us as adults.
Of course.
Like, I think about when I was growing up, my grandma had a computer in the early 90s. And a computer from the early 90s, like, it took maybe half an hour for it to warm up. So you turn it on, then you go out, you run around, you play for a bit, then you come back in, it's warmed up. And then you don't necessarily have like a nice user interface. You have to type in a code to get it to load the program you want.
Wow.
And, that was just like how computers are, and we went with it. But now, if I turn my computer on and it takes 20 seconds to load, I'm like, what's wrong with this thing? It's supposed to be loaded already.
Yes, our phones, everything.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, the patience you'd have before to wait for something to happen. In 5 seconds, you're already thinking, what is wrong with that? You're playing with it. It's like you just expect everything in record time.
Yep, we've lost our patience. Like, the technology helps us do things we could have never done before. It gives us so much more time, but it always has its drawbacks.
Yes, I mean, I love it myself,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, if I were to look at it vis-a-vis how my children would benefit from it, I mean, truth be told, I would prefer that they not be so immersed into it until they get to a certain point, in life where I feel comfortable that, okay, you know how to do this on your own. So you can use this just to speed it up because you know how to do it. But if this is what you're depending on, to do the thinking for you and the reasoning and the problem solving and everything, what happens if for some reason all of that just crashes?
Right.
Then you're left there like, what, an empty vessel? Like you just don't know what to do, how to go about doing things,
Yeah.
You just feel lost.
Yep.
No, I wouldn't want that.
And I would say, think about like GPS, right? When you and I were growing up, you had to have them. Well, I don't know. Did you all use maps when you were growing up, or did you just know your way around the island?
Not really, because I mean, we were on a very small island.
Yeah.
So you just know your way around, ask people as you go along, that kind of
Okay,
thing.
okay.
Yes.
Well, and even that, really, like asking people, but definitely in the States, like when I was growing up, you didn't have GPS. So if you needed to find a new place, you had to pull out the map. If you're on a road trip, you get a map of the area and you kind of mark your way along. Now, if you asked me to do that today, if my GPS went out and it's like, here's a map, I would have no idea what to do. Like, I'm lost. If the GPS isn't working, I don't know how to find my way.
Something as simple as that. Imagine that. Yeah. And it's not something that you would not necessarily know how to do, but you have become so dependent on that.
Yeah.
So it's like you have lost, the will to even do it on your own. That's what it is. Yeah.
The strength is weakened. I never really learned how to do it in the first place because the GPS was there by the time I needed to navigate myself.
Yes.
And so, but I could learn to use a map if I wanted to. It just, because it feels like the GPS is always going to be there, it's like, why? Why do I need to learn how to use a map?
Yep.
So thinking about that idea that like our schools were initially designed to prepare children to work in the factories, what is the world that our children are going to be entering into? Like looking at the schools, how they're set up here, and looking at the culture and the world and what the children are going to be walking into, what do kids need to be prepared for?
Well, when I look at it now, I mean, I have no choice but to compare what it used to be and what it is now. And we know how fast-paced everything is. So definitely, when our children leave the school and they go out to work and, out in the communities, one of the things they would really need to know how to do is to collaborate, to work with others, right? Solve problems. We do have the AI, at the workplace. I mean, technology. We have
Yeah.
a lot of machines and so on. So yes, the work that we probably would have been doing a couple of years ago after leaving school, going to a workplace, we may not necessarily have to do that now, but we still need the skill to be able to manage whatever it is that is put in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to know how to use the machines.
Yeah.
We still have to know how to cooperate,
Mm-hmm.
with others, people working around us. Now it's not about working with the person in the next room or in the same room with you anymore. It's about working with somebody millions of miles away, So it's all of that. It's a lot more soft skills, that we need to really ensure that our children develop going out there, than what it used to be before.
Yeah. And I think that's what people sometimes don't always think about. In the States, we call them 21st century skills, but the same idea, the getting along with other people. How do I hold down a job? How do I, handle a conflict, right? Maybe my supervisor was wrong when they yelled at me because I did what they said and they still yelled. But I can't just walk off the job or hit them or whatever. I don't get to be justified. I need this job. So how am I going to process that and how am I going to manage that with my supervisor is a skill set I need. We can't always think in terms of right and wrong because sometimes you can be in the right and still have to kind of swallow it because you need something else.
Yes, true.
Mm-hmm.
I even feel like we have to go back to ensuring that we teach our students the common courtesies and all of that. I mean, before, well, I can speak to our environment here. It may have been different for you. Before, this was a priority at home because parents wanted to make sure that when children leave their home and they go out there, they are seen as those polite little people, well mannered, well disciplined, and so on.
Yeah.
Now, the reality is that a conscious effort was made to instill those values and all of that. I think now people have gotten very busy, although that should not be an excuse, but with technology in the homes, children sitting in front of a TV, engrossed in whatever TV show. Teenagers have their phones, they're confined to their rooms and they're on their phones all of the time. Parents out there busy working, trying to make ends meet. You don't really have the family unit having the conversations and the coaching and all of the guidance. Now, with all of that technology, the children come to the school, you teach them whatever it is that you have to do, they go out to work. If all of those common courtesies and the good manners and the discipline and all of that is lost, and we believe to think that, okay, you can use the computer very well and you can design this and you can design that, so you're well on your way. When you go out to the world of work with all of those skills, you come in and you don't know how to interact properly, you don't know how to manage conflicts, you don't really know how to solve problems that would take you and your brain, to do, then what good does that do for us? How beneficial would just those skills in isolation be to those students? So I feel like we have to go back. The children come to us and we still have to teach them the excuse me please, and no, you did not have to yell back at the person, you can talk it through and come to some kind of understanding, and it doesn't have to be a back and forth. And it's like we have to go back to teach all of that.
Right. Absolutely. Those SEL skills are so important. I mean, like you said, you can be the smartest person in the room. You can be the person that can, create this amazing program that the company needs. But if you can't interact with people, then nobody's going to see that. They're going to see your anger. They're going to see your shyness or whatever it is. and you're never going to get to really live up to your potential. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, where he talked about one of the smartest people in the world. This person had an IQ of something like 200, and he was working at McDonald's. He's one of those people that could like open up a book on advanced physics, and just by reading the book, automatically he understood everything they were talking about because he just, had that mind. But the thing is that when he was growing up, he was always taught by his parents like to listen to authority, don't talk back, be compliant, all of these little things, right? And because of that, like he gets into a situation where he's in college and he had to switch from morning classes to afternoon classes because he didn't have a vehicle and he could get a ride in the afternoon, but he couldn't get a ride in the morning. So he went to talk to his advisor about making this switch. And his advisor looked at his transcripts, saw that he changed schools a couple of times and was constantly like making switches. And so his advisor decided it was going to be better for him to figure out how to make the morning work than to let him switch to the afternoon. And because he didn't have any solution for the morning, he dropped out of college. And so he never finished college. He doesn't have the degrees, even though he's able to just instantly understand things. And without that college degree, he can write the master thesis and whatnot. But nobody's going to look at it. He's not going to find anyone with a PhD willing to read through anything he writes because to them, all they see is a college dropout, never even got a bachelor's degree. What kind of value can you add? And on the other side of it, Oppenheimer, right? They just did the movie on him.
No.
Not familiar? Okay, so Oppenheimer, basically, he was one of the key figures in developing the atomic bomb. And so, genius man, figured out nuclear technology. Right up there, he worked alongside Einstein. And when Oppenheimer was going through college, there's a story out there. The family disputes it, so I don't know if it's one of those like legends that people just like to tell or if it's based in historical fact. But this was also in Malcolm Gladwell's book. And he's talking about Oppenheimer got mad at one of his TAs for some reason. And so he attempted to poison his TA. The TA survived the poisoning. And I mean, you try to kill somebody, they're going to call the cops, right? But when the administration calls him in, he's like, look, I've already got these projects signed up with the government. They're already looking to bring me on for stuff. Now, you've got two options here. You can call the cops and, get me arrested and everything. And then your school really looks like the school that's producing murderers. Or we can just sweep this under the rug. You can let me go off to these government grants and do all these great things. And your school looks like the kind of school that produces a great man. And so the school decided to let it go because they wanted the reputation from the good things he would do. So you've got one person who can't even talk his TA or his advisor into letting him switch classes, and another person who basically gets off with murder. And there's something in those social skills. That's what makes the difference. It's not necessarily about how smart you are, it's about those soft skills. Can you navigate social situations?
Yes, and I think that's the direction that we really need to go because when the children leave and they go out and they can manage in terms of their knowledge and what they can do. But then we still always get the complaints that they come with all of the knowledge and that's about it. They come with the book knowledge or whatever skills, and that's about it. Their work ethic is poor. Their respect for authority. Sometimes they feel so entitled and so on. I mean, it's sad that you have all of the progress in one area, but then you have that other side that's kind of deteriorating. And then we really need to make that conscious effort to try to balance it.
And that's where I think we fail children because, like you said, they have all the book knowledge, right? If I put a multiple choice test in front of you, you can get 100% on that multiple choice test. Now let me put you out in the real world with an actual problem where you don't have any context, you don't have a test to choose between four answers. Can you find the solution? And we're not training them for that. When we look at our standardized tests, when we look at our SATs, our CXEs, all of those tests don't really say, if I put you in a novel situation, could you figure out a solution? They just say, if I ask you a specific question, can you recall the answer?
And that's why I think we need to have more authentic learning. We need to bring a lot more of that in.
Yeah.
That test in every corner. We do something in grade K. At the end of grade K, you have a test. Okay, fine. Nothing wrong in trying to assess, how much your children have progressed. But then it becomes that competitive thing, and then we find a lot of us teachers, well, I'll say us because I don't want to exclude myself completely, but I know better. I mean, I can say that. Many times we find ourselves teaching to the test because we are going to be judged by how the students perform, and it's not even just within our school, it's within the district, then it's on a national level, right? So we're pushing and we're pushing and we're pushing and make sure the children can regurgitate the facts and all of that. Then they move on to another class and there's that national exam. They move on to another one. And we teachers, we're in the class. We want to bring in the authentic learning. Now, I'm not saying that there's no way that it can happen, but we have to understand that it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes resources, it takes planning.
Yeah.
And by the time you're seen as one who spends quite a bit of time on that, sometimes even our administrators do not really see the value in that because they too are under pressure as it relates to the school's performance when you look at it among other schools and other districts. So it's like it's just the you have that ripple effect, right? But if we had the authentic learning where we teach a concept, the children get a chance to really go and do some inquiry, they get a chance to apply whatever it is that they're learning, so they can see the link between school and what is out there. You don't see school as one separate entity, and then when you go out there, it's something else. They could see that, you try to bridge the gap with the authentic learning.
Absolutely.
But we don't have much of that at all.
Yep. No, that's exactly it. It's experiential learning is so much more important. Like, let's figure out, what do you want to do with your life, right? Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a mechanic? Do you want to be a teacher? And once we get you up to secondary school, I think there's a certain need for us to teach like the basics, right?
Yes.
Maybe as a doctor, you're never going to need to add 2 plus 2. But there are definitely points in your life where you're going to need to be able to count and add. And so there's a basic knowledge we need. But I feel like when we get to that point of secondary school, our focus really should be more on, what are you going to do with your life? Because if you're going to be a mechanic, why don't I just get you into those classes now, get you starting to learn that stuff, get a head start. And when you graduate from secondary school, you're ready to go start working in a shop. You're going to learn a lot more by working in a shop, actually working on a car, than you are in a classroom reading books about how to fix a car.
Exactly. And we see that all the time, Mr. Blaine. We see that from primary school level, we see that. We see some children who are very musically inclined. We see some children who are very creative with the hands and so on, right? We say that they're not really academically bent, but they're forced to go through the same system. Now, I'm not saying from that tender age to stream them, no, but we speak about teaching the child.
Yeah.
Yet our assessment practices and the expectations do not really go hand in hand with that.
Yeah.
If we we notice something about a particular child, we try to teach that child. That child will not even be exempted from the standardized test that's going to happen at the end. While you know that the child may not be able to handle it, you know what the child is very good at.
Yeah.
You're trying to get the child to at least experience some success in some area. And we know research has shown that this can help them in other areas. But if the child is just sitting there forced to follow the same curriculum and everything, and then have the test at the end, seen as a failure, move on from one grade, go to another, same thing, what are we really doing for them?
Well, that's it. There's a cartoon out there that it says something to the effect of, even a fish would be seen as a moron if it was judged on its ability to climb a tree.
Yes.
And I think there is that point where we almost need to look at society as a system. And a system needs everything, right? If you've got someone who's really, really musically inclined, not so much academically inclined, we need musicians. Musicians give us music, they give us energy, they let us relax. There's nothing wrong with being focused on music, being really great at music, but maybe not the best academic.
Yes.
If you've got someone that's great with their hands, what's wrong with teaching them how to go and build houses and roof and all of these things? From what I understand, on the island here, we have a bit of a shortage of like skilled labor. If you need a plumber, you can't just call somebody up and they're here tomorrow. It's you're on the waiting list until they finally have time.
That's right, yes. And we do have all of those things to to use as telling, stories. But we still continue doing the same thing. We still continue doing the same thing.
Yeah.
We have, okay, there's all of the technology, we use it in our classroom to enhance learning,
Yeah.
And to support in areas where we see the need for it. When the children leave primary school and they go to secondary school, just this transition from there to secondary school, they're still at school. And in many cases, they no longer get that kind of support. That's to show you how disjointed it is sometimes. You have a child who really needs some support. You pull the child aside and you offer support and so on. And that child goes off to a secondary school. And the child is just there together with everybody else, trying to, it's sink or swim, It's a small jump from primary school to secondary school, yet look at how disjointed it is already. Yeah. Far less from secondary school going out. It's like, okay, we're done with you. Let's go out and see what you can do.
Yeah.
And when you get out there, well, we're hoping that you'll survive it. That kind of thing. It's not like, I don't think that, like you were saying, I don't think we adequately prepare them for what is out there. Financial literacy. So many other little areas that we are seeing that our children need, to develop skills in. We say it all the time. Yet, I don't know, there's some kind of barrier, some kind of red tape, something getting in the way of bridging that gap.
And what is that? Like, what do you think? Because we know that teachers are kind of on the forefront of innovation, right? The innovations happen in the classroom. A teacher does something because they say it needed to solve a problem, and it worked. But then maybe it doesn't scale up. Maybe the teacher gets in trouble for deviating. Like, what are the barriers to being able to innovate?
Mr. Blaine. That in itself is another big issue that I can say even I myself have been faced with. We're in the classroom and we're looking at how things are done or have been done. We come up with ideas, we liaise with other people and we figure out little ways of doing things differently, that could enhance learning and make the whole teaching learning process, a little more effective. Sometimes it takes additional resources, time, like you mentioned, a little bit of deviation from the norms, and it is not necessarily well received. In some cases, I mean, it is, but a lot of the times, again, it's like we're so structured and it's almost like we're looking towards that test at the end, that anything we see happening that we think is going against the our normal routine stuff. I don't know. I personally believe that sometimes it is seen as a little threat. Is this going to affect how we will perform in the end? Yeah. I don't know. I may be wrong, but I feel like this is always the question.
Well, I would say that's definitely a part of the problem. I mean, at my last job, like, one of the reasons I kind of burned out is because we moved away from there was a time when we were focused on helping students earn their GED. That was the metric that mattered. Did the student earn their GED? That's all we care about. But then the state started coming up with all of these metrics that weren't earning GEDs, that they decided if you meet these metrics, then the GED will be earned. So we don't have to measure that. And all of the metrics are, I mean, I can't say every metric, but the metrics were essentially irrelevant. The biggest metric that they worried about was the passer rate. And the passer rate, that's the number of students that had taken all four tests divided by the number of students that had earned a GED. So I can effectively get a 100% passer rate by simply identifying those few students that are outliers, that all I need to do is put them down to take the test and they'll pass it. And for every other student out there that's going to really needs my help, I can give them 3 of the 4 tests, and as long as I never give them the 4th test, I maintain a 100% passer rate. And that became our focus. All of a sudden, we were supposed to, I won't say, I mean, no one's going to directly tell you to ignore these students over here, but they're going to tell you passer rate is everything. And the best way to meet that passer rate is to just sort of, and if you're not testing these students, nobody questions it. Nobody cares because your passer rate's at 98%. There was a time, like in our best times, we were graduating probably 100 students a year. And when this whole passer rate debate came down the pipeline, we were lucky to hit 20 graduates in a year. And nobody questioned that drop. Nobody was upset about that drop. Everybody was happy because we got the passer rate. And so I got to the point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It's a waste of time. We're not helping anybody. The students that are earning GEDs are students that would do it with or without us. And the students that really need us are being left out in the cold because they might hurt our numbers, so we can't dare give them a chance.
Yeah. Um, as it relates to the innovation and the barriers that you spoke of, I mean, we've had cases where we have organized groups, you know, and teachers share their innovative ideas and so on. And the expectation is that it will be well received, you know, and maybe the idea would be upscaled and so on. But I don't know, maybe lack of resources, maybe maybe we see merit in it in our little classrooms, but then administrators, policymakers, whoever else, maybe they don't. I really don't know exactly what the problem is, but a lot of the times when we come up with our innovative ideas, you would find that we would have to find a way to fund it, you know, to get the resources and to do whatever. And then and we go ahead and we do it because we see the merit in it. There's satisfaction in coming up with something and seeing that it is benefiting the students. So we don't necessarily wait, you know, for those in authority to do it. But what's about when we have the brilliant ideas and we don't have the funds to really get the resources and whatever? What happens? It just dies out. I mean, we do our little bit, you know, but there's only so much that you can do on your own.
Well, that's exactly it. When you're on the front lines, you're making the innovations. But if the people above you aren't offering support for those, then yeah, those innovations die because you can't fund it yourself if the money is not there. Or, you know, you said like you would meet in groups and come up with ideas. Is your administration giving you time to meet in groups? Because if you're not being given that time, that becomes a problem.
And it's all of these things too. It's all of these things too. Sometimes administration has its own ideas. Sometimes administration has its own ideas, and you as the classroom teacher, I mean, you are on the ground and may not necessarily think that this would be the best thing, maybe at that point in time. Not that the idea may be a bad one entirely, you know, but it may not be appropriate at the time, or you know, and you may have the situation where if it's not the idea of the administration, then it is not really pushed. They don't really see, you
Yeah.
know, the value in it and so on. So it will die right there.
Yeah.
Unless you take it up on your own,
Yeah.
you know, to follow through and do whatever on your own,
Mhm.
then that's just what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
an idea.
No, and that's it. That's the unfortunate truth is that there are too many leaders out there that feel like either they feel like their job is to elevate themselves or their own successes, or they're so focused on like this narrow measurement of success that anything that exists outside that narrow measurement is seen as a distraction to what we need to be doing. You guys, have you ever heard of the book Who Moved My Cheese?
No.
Okay, so it's like a little leadership fable. And the basic idea of this fable is that the world's always changing. There's this saying out there, adapt or die. And so you've always got to be looking for the next change. You know Blockbuster? You know Blockbuster? Okay, so Blockbuster comes around in the 1980s and they're a movie rental business. And they survive for about 30 years. Netflix comes along and Netflix makes it easier to rent movies because with Netflix, you can just get them sent to you in the mail and you can keep them until you're done with them and send them back. So you've got no late fees. That was Blockbuster's biggest issue. People hated the late fees. And then people didn't really like they loved going to Blockbuster to get a movie, but then when you were done and you had to bring it home, it was just like a chore. Oh, after work today, I got to run by Blockbuster to drop this off. So Netflix kind of solved that problem. And at one point, when Netflix is just getting started, they try to sell themselves to Blockbuster. Like they're a tiny company, they're disrupting Blockbuster. But Blockbuster at this time has something like 50,000 stores worldwide. They see themselves as like unbeatable. And so when Netflix tries to sell themselves for like $50 million, Blockbuster just slaps them right out the door. And then you've got like 10 years later, Blockbuster doesn't even exist anymore. And Netflix is now $1 billion company because they weren't thinking in terms of like, how is the world changing and how are we going to adapt to those changes? They were thinking everything's always going to be exactly as it is right now.
Right there, right now.
And so if you aren't looking ahead to say, how can we incorporate AI, then you're going to fail. Somebody who does incorporate AI is going to beat you because the world's going to change and the old model of doing things isn't going to work well with the new model of doing things.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot just sit back and be left behind.
You're right.
I mean, and even in cases where that may not necessarily be your thing, you just don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you may like to do things one way, but are you going to survive just doing things that one way that you like when
Right.
the rest of the world is moving ahead?
Yep.
Sometimes, I mean, you have to just accept that this is what it is
Mm-hmm.
and do the necessary.
Absolutely. I mean, if we think about it, let's think about how schools were taught when you were going to school. I imagine the way you teach today isn't the way that you were taught back however many years ago. Right. And if you tried to teach that way, I'm sure there are some teachers that still do because, well, this is what I was taught, and so I'm not going to deviate. And I would imagine those teachers are far less effective than the teacher that's always looking for the newest strategy.
Of course, definitely. I find myself in that situation a lot where some teachers tell me, oh, they will never do that. You know, because before, I mean, when I was attending primary school, it was the famous talk and chalk. That's what it was. The teacher would stand in front. And there was indeed that mentality where you were coming in not really knowing anything, and the teacher had all the knowledge, and the teacher was always right, and the teacher was passing on that knowledge, and you had to listen to the teacher and do it exactly how the teacher wants it done, you know. But then now it's different. Now we the teachers, we actually ask the students what they know about whatever it is that we're going to do.
Yep.
Even before we give them our information,
Yeah.
you know what it is that we want to help them with. We
Mhm.
find out what they know.
Yeah.
We use them
Yep.
to speak to the children and, you know, to be part of the class.
Yep.
The teaching aids that we use we make an effort to find out what the children like, because it's no longer about us. When I was attending school, it was definitely about the teachers.
Yep.
Yeah, we were coming in as if, empty vessels,
Exactly. Yep.
coming in to be filled.
Yep.
You cannot come in with that mentality anymore. I stand in front of the class and I tell the children, okay, we're having a lesson on animals.
Yep.
Truth be told, some of the children know more about animals than I do, especially a certain type of animal. When they start talking about certain dinosaurs and the names and this and that and other.
Well, that's it. It's amazing what these phones do for kids. Like, when we were kids, maybe we had a book on dinosaurs we could learn some from. But today, if they like dinosaurs, they can go find 100 YouTube videos and get all of this deep knowledge that you wouldn't even expect them to have.
And they were born just yesterday. I'm much older than them, right? But they know so much more about it. What I have to do is sit back and welcome them to the front, and they just take over. They lead the class, they do their thing, and it's a two-way. It's no longer about you being that figure at the front. You cannot do that the way the teachers were doing it so many years ago. You cannot come and do that.
Well, that's it. And it's less effective, right? We were just talking about how to prepare children for the world, we have to get them ready to solve problems. We have to empower them. You're no longer going to go work in a job where your boss tells you what to do and you, as an empty vessel, go do it. You're now in a world where your boss gives you a goal or an objective, and you have to figure out how to meet that objective. And so in the classroom, we have to empower them. We have to let them come up. We have to let them add their knowledge, because they're going to end up in working environments where that's what's going to be expected from them.
I think one of the challenges, Mr. Blaine, is the personalities of the people in authority. Are you the person who will listen? Are you the person who can accept that you've made a mistake or you don't know something? Or somebody, an employee, in my case a student, knows more about something than I do? Are you that kind of accepting person?
Right.
If you're not, then you will constantly find yourself in a battle, because you are not ready for what's in front of you in this day and age, right?
Yeah.
But if you come with the attitude where we're all in this learning thing together. In some cases, I may be the authority on that subject matter, although you will not use the word authority, I'm just saying,
Right.
And in other cases, I will be more than happy to learn from you, whatever ways in which you know how to do this and know how to do that. And it's not even just the academics. In our school system, we have all these observances and so on. Students come from home knowing how to do certain things in particular ways. We're in the age where you use them. You bring in the parents, you bring in whoever resource person that you know. This was not really happening before. If I have to think back, I can't remember any of our parents coming in to read to the class during literacy month, or no, the teacher was seen as this person who had the knowledge.
Right.
That's the only person who could have done that. Or do it so well. But now it's different. We have to embrace what is out there, and like we were saying, prepare the children for that, because we have to teach them that too. We have to teach them that you don't know everything. We are dependent on each other. You take from me, I take from you. We are sharing, we are growing together. We have to teach them that when they leave here and they go out, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Your neighbors, your work colleague, it's the same thing.
Well, and that's it. The administrator, the leader, the person in charge. They have to let go of this idea that they're the most important person on the team, and recognize that they're just one of the team members filling a role. Because realistically, if I'm a team leader and I've got 5 positions underneath me and I can't find anybody to work for me, how valuable am I? It's those 5 people. Like, My value is definitely being able to guide people and help them work together and to sort of clear obstacles so they can do their work. But if I don't have those 5 people, then nothing's getting accomplished. And if I take that role, like you said, of like letting people with expertise, like, hey, take the lead on this or teach us this or let's learn from you, we actually accomplish far more than when it's just this complete top down, I'm going to tell you, you and you what to do.
It's like the boss is out or the principal is out and the teachers they don't know what to do. The boss is out and the employees don't know what to do.
Yep. They
Right.
have to be told because they're so used to being told.
Yes. Now, you, the boss or the principal, you may think that, when people are seeing you in charge, because that's what you like, you may see that as a big thing. But then, if in your absence, people don't know what to do, that says a lot about your leadership style.
Yeah.
So if you're out sick, then there's no productivity. As a leader, you should be able to create the situations, the avenues where your team members are growing, and then you may be there, but it's almost like you're not there.
Yeah.
And when you're not there, it's almost like you are there. Life should go on.
Yeah.
You should be able to be so willing to accept and guide
Yeah.
that people can take the lead on things and they know that you're not going to feel offended that anybody's stepping on your toes, or all of that is just it's done respectfully, of course, but you should not see that as a threat when people are able
Right.
to, when you are replaceable, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Because if you're leading a team, that's what you want. You want to be helping to develop leaders
Yeah.
among the people that you work with.
Well, I think that's a mistake some people make. Some people get it in their heads that they're irreplaceable. Whether you're talking about the school leader, you're talking about one of the teachers, or even talking about like support staff, some people, for whatever reason, just get this idea that they're irreplaceable. And at the end of the day, any single person can be replaced. The CEO can be replaced. He will be replaced at some point, right? Nobody's immortal. So there's always a day where we're going to have to figure out how to work without you. And so nobody is above being replaced. And it's not so much about the position you hold as it's about the value that you add, right? The person that's contributing, the person that's adding value, that person is the person that we really want to hold on to and work with more than the person above them. If the person above them is stifling their ability to sort of get out there and grow, then is that person above them really helping the team accomplish what it needs to accomplish?
That's right. If I was a leader, well, we're in school, so if I was a school leader, to me, I would really welcome the innovative ideas. Because at the end of the day, it would mean that we are constantly on that road to evolving and getting better. Because you're in the classroom and you're constantly trying to find ways of doing things differently to enhance learning. At the end of the day, isn't that what you'd want in a school? Where teachers are constantly trying things, not just sitting there and doing the same things over and over, getting the same results and complaining.
Yeah.
Actively, engaging in getting things done, actively engaging in finding new ways of doing things, ways of motivating the students, ways of getting them engaged, ways of making them lifelong learners. It's all, to me, it's all of that you want happening at the school. You want the school to be bubbling with energy where people come and they say, oh, you know what? I came up with this game and the children love it and I think we're getting the results.
Yeah.
Another teacher can just modify it to suit their level or whatever.
Yeah.
Just imagine you have a staff of 10 and you have at least 4 or 5 people with that mindset.
Yeah.
To me, you can go so far with that.
Oh, yeah.
But if you're that administrator who the teachers do not feel comfortable, going that way, then it's almost like you're stifling you know, the school and the growth that could be taking place.
And that's exactly what I tried to do when I was a school leader. Like a lot of my leadership was bringing the team together and maybe saying like, okay, here's a problem we're having. How do we solve this problem? And having the team give ideas, what can we do? When we'd come up with an idea and we'd implement it, like after we'd implemented it for a bit, we would do a postmortem on it, right? How did it work? What could we have done better? A lot like what we do on literacy committee. I mean, on literacy committee, I don't think any one of us can really say like this was this person's idea, this was that person's idea, because really we asked a question as a group. We all talked about that question, and anything that we've done as a committee. There isn't one person that's responsible for those successes. And I think you're right. I think that's so important. Like the team is going to accomplish far more than any individual would. And the goal of a leader is just to get that team. Like that's really where you get your pride. I remember there was a time our superintendent had sort of put out a challenge. She wanted some sort of visual roadmap for the process to earning a GED. And so she told people like submit what you want to submit and then there'll be a prize for whoever does the best one. And so me thinking in that time, that idea of teamwork is going to produce far more than any individual. I brought my team together and I just invited them. It wasn't even like a mandate. It was, hey, I saw this challenge has been sent out to everybody. I'd like us to put together a team effort. So anybody that wants to join this project, like meet me down in the room after 3:00. And like most of the team, I think everybody actually showed up to do it. Everybody on the team, they all wanted to be a part of it. And what we produced was, I mean, the winning thing. Like it was far better than anything anybody else had put out because we were all giving suggestions. There was someone on the team that was really good with like computer animation, so he was able to create the ideas. We were going back and forth through discussion about should we use cloud, should we use this, and that discussion helped us refine. Whereas if the five of us had each developed our own, we would have had this picture of what's right. We would have created our picture. And because we didn't have sort of that back and forth and those challenges to ideas and whatnot, it wouldn't have been anywhere near what we'd actually accomplished.
That's what it is. That's what it is. You always get so much more working together. It's not about just one person. It's always a team.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to end up working alone. You know, and not because you feel that you can do it all alone.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's simply because you have the idea, you have tried selling the idea, you're not really getting the feedback and support that you want, but deep down you know it is something that could possibly bring, you know, good results and so on. So instead of letting it just die out, you go ahead and you try it on your own. You know, you try it on your own. I mean, it's always better when you get to work with others. But unfortunately, sometimes.
No, and you're right. Sometimes we have to show because you go on your own, you do it alone, you show it can work. And when you actually have something to show people, it's not just talk, but it's I've done this, this is what I got. Then you kind of get people on board. But that's hard for a lot of people, I think. Like when you find that everybody has rejected your idea, everybody's telling you it won't work or it'll take too much time or whatever. I think a lot of people give up at that point, right? They want to fit in with the group or whatnot. So if the group is telling them that their idea won't work, then they just abandon their idea. And so it sounds like you're one that can kind of push through that. So what's sort of your process? Like everybody tells you your idea is dumb and it'll never work. You believe in your idea, you still go do it. What lets you do that?
Well, first of all, I've not had a case where everybody will tell me it's a dumb idea.
I'm sure people are more polite about it, but they're not jumping on board.
But they may not necessarily jump on board. I mean, to be fair to them, I think a lot of the time I may sound overly ambitious, and some people are not prepared to give it all of that time and effort and all of that. But the thing is with me, if I believe in something, I will be very passionate about it. And I have always been that person who is not too much. Um, I'm not really bothered too much by whatever energy that comes outside, as long as I know I'm doing the right thing and I'm not getting in anybody's way. So if it comes to trying something for my class, and the lovely thing is that there's only one of the grade. So I have grade K, there's only one grade K class.
Yeah.
So it's not like I have to force anybody else, or maybe this person wants to move on and I am on that topic, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So that makes it work beautifully.
Yeah.
I believe in it. I'll try it. I mean, you have left here and seen me still sitting in
Oh,
my
yeah.
class working on something.
Every day.
So I will, I will stay. I will do it when I go home. That's the not so nice part, because sometimes I take it home with me, and then everybody here has to be involved in some way or another, whether they're cutting something or looking for scrap somewhere to build something.
So you're not
You
just
know.
doing it at home, you're incorporating them. You're sending them out. They become part of your project.
Yes, a lot of the times they're there too, and they're supportive. I guess they see how passionate I am about it, and
yeah.
yes. So I that's what it is. I just go
Yeah.
ahead and I do my thing, and
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing. I think that we need a partner in it, right? If you can't find a partner here at the school, you can go home and you can find partners there. They see your passion and they're willing to sort of jump in and work with you. And I think that's a big thing. I just look at like the literacy committee, and we've had this conversation before, that the reason we're able to produce what we produce, because from what I understand, before I came along, we weren't really as productive. I mean, there were ebbs and flows, so there were times, but the big thing is that, like, when I came along, there's nothing specific that I did. I helped us organize, but you're also the other big piece of that. And I think it's having that partner, right? Without you, the fact that I can help us organize doesn't mean we're going to get things done. Without me, you don't necessarily have that partner that's going to get as excited. So you're not necessarily going to have the same motivation to want to jump in. And so it's having that partner that really helps.
Yes, and directly out of what you said there, um, it highlights the importance of finding people with like minds and the passion.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to accept that not everybody will be passionate about something. I mean, we have our ways and we have what we like, and it's important to find the people who will be as interested in it as you.
Yeah.
So that way, I mean, when you have like minds working together,
Right.
you can go on and on and on and on. Now,
Yeah.
just like you said, it was, honestly, Mr. Blaine, you come in here, it was like a breath of fresh air, because you saw how many times I was coming to you to bounce off little ideas and whatever. I mean, and I'm really grateful for that. Yes, we have other members of staff who would listen, but sometimes I would feel that maybe I would be troubling them too much, and I don't fault them in any way for that.
Right.
I do not.
Yeah.
There are some people who would not mind, and they hear the ideas and they listen, and like
Yeah.
I would come to you, and then you'd act. I think a couple of times I've already told you, I'm so sorry, Mr. Blaine, for coming, because we speak about something, then I go to my class, and then an idea comes, and I come right back to you to tell you,
Yeah.
but what about,
Yeah.
and then you never showed me as if, oh my God, she's coming again,
No, I loved it.
Never like that, right?
I mean, that's one of the things I love to do, having those conversations, iterating, developing something. Like, I was happy. Every time you come in to talk about a new idea, I get excited with you.
That's right, but not everybody, has
Right.
that. Not
Yeah,
everybody
yeah.
has that. So when you find somebody who has it, to me, you can move mountains. There's so much that you can do.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much that you can do. You see how I mean, with the literacy committee,
Yeah.
the ideas and whatever. I mean, we've had some lovely ideas.
Yeah.
We have executed and so on. Yes, I mean, I don't know how far we can go.
Well, I think there's no limit. Well, our limit is time, right? How much time do we have? Because if we work together for the next 10 years, I mean, I imagine the limit is endless as to what we can accomplish. Well, we identify problems and we find solutions to those problems. And I think we've always been able to figure out how to make it work. You know, some people get hung up on like technology. Oh, I do this, but we can't afford that program. Or they get hung up on money. I do this, but we can't afford all these decorations. But there's always an answer. Like, you don't need $1 million to put on a good production. You can put on a good production for less. Just don't expect to, say, hire some production company to come and do all of your decorating for pajama night. Reach out to the few people you know who are good, find the materials you can find. And our pajama night, like, I mean, those booths were decorated amazingly. Like, what we put up, what we put on, we really transformed the school. We made it feel like a special night. And we didn't need the production team that St. Lucia Jazz has to put on their shows.
Not at all. And if we may say so ourselves, it was very successful.
Absolutely.
Yes. But one of the key things we have not spoken about, Mr. Blaine, is the time. The time factor. I mean, yes, it comes out very well and we're all happy, but it does take a bit of time and effort.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
if individuals are not ready to invest that amount of time in it, that may be a little barrier to them, really being able to create some of the things that they want to create and to bring about
Yeah.
those innovative ideas that, they want to put forward.
Yeah.
It takes quite a bit of time. And
Well, that's it. It's almost a mindset, right? Like, how do you see your job, and what do you take value in, I would say. So not even necessarily. There's this idea out there. Who was it? I've got the name down here. So, oh, there we go. It's Anthony Muhammad. He writes a book called Transforming School Culture. And in this book, Transforming School Culture, he says there are basically three types of influencers: there's believers, there's fundamentalists, and there's tweeners. The believers are the people like you and I that believe that every child can learn, that believe, let's try a new innovation, let's find something different. The people that are excited to kind of go beyond just the traditional way of doing things. The fundamentalists, they have this mindset of some children can learn, some children can't. Whether or not I teach them, it's not going to make a difference. It's just the way of the world. And the fundamentalists aren't as excited about new ideas. They're going to see a student that's struggling and they're going to say, there's nothing that can be done, that student just can't learn. And then someone like you or I will come along and we'll try different things, we'll find something that works, and we'll make progress with that student. And it's not that the fundamentalists are necessarily, they're not bad people. It's not that they don't care. It's that for whatever reason, they've just sort of developed this mindset of the world is black and white, and they don't want to step out into those gray areas. And so most schools are going to be occupied with those two types of people. And what you find is the schools that really innovate, the schools that rise above, are the schools that have more believers than fundamentalists. Because if you can get 80% of people on board with an idea, those 20% that are holding out, they're at least going to give up their resistance because they realize that everybody else wants to do it, so they have to come and join the group too.
And I was thinking, between the believers and the fundamentalists, you said, I think there are some people lying in between there.
Yeah.
So depending on which force is greater,
Yeah.
on their side,
Yeah.
then they may just tilt towards that side.
And that's the third group, the tweeners that I mentioned.
Oh, okay.
Yep. They're in the middle. Okay. And what Anthony Muhammad says is that when a new teacher joins a school, they're a tweener for the first couple of years. So whether they're a first year teachers are always tweeners. But then even if, let's say, you switched and you went to Delcier, then while you're at Delcier, you're going to be a tweener. And it's going to depend on the culture at Delcier and who kind of pulls you in as to if you become a fundamentalist or if you become a believer.
Okay.
So that's why it's so important when we have first year teachers for like those veteran believers to kind of pull them in, offer them the support, and make sure that they kind of get that idea of what we can do and what can be accomplished. Because he says, like, what usually happens is there'll be a crisis point with a first year teacher, right? That first year, it's hard. I'm just trying to figure it out. some parent comes into my room and just explodes on me because X, Y, or Z with their child, now I'm in a hard place. Now, who's going to come to support me? If the fundamentalist comes to support me and the fundamentalist tells me the parents are terrible, don't even worry about it, they're always going to do that, let's just go and get a drink, then that tweener is going to become a fundamentalist. But if the believer comes in and says, yeah, she was over the top, let's look at what happened, what can we do with the child, and like the believer tries to offer that support and give more of a positive look to it, then that tweener is more likely to go over to the believer side.
Okay. Now you're saying this, and in my mind, I'm thinking that we have situations where some people, I don't know what the term would be for them. Some people would look at the believers as it's like you're going out of your way. Maybe you just want to show off. Or you want to show that you're better than I am. You know, and that kind of thinking. Whereas the fundamentalists are not, I mean, we don't see them as bad people. It's just that they have their own beliefs.
Right.
What's about cases where they actually try, because they see the believers as threats to how they are viewed. So they actually try to kind of, well, sabotage is a strong word, but you know what I mean.
But no, that's exactly what happens. What he writes in his book is exactly the fundamentalists will try to sabotage the believers. Because I think it's been a while since I've read that book, but I think it is something along the lines of what you're saying, as in their minds, you're just trying to show off, you're just trying to do this or that. And so they want to make the point that you're wrong because you are a threat to them. You're a threat to their worldview. If you succeed in teaching a child that they say can't be taught, then their worldview gets a little bit of a crack in it, because how come that person could teach them? That child shouldn't be able to be taught. And so they want to stop you so that they can stay in their comfort zone.
Yeah, I think that's a dangerous set of people to have. I wonder if, well, anyway, not I wonder. Maybe at Teachers College and these places, the aim is to get more believers than fundamentalists. I would.
Yeah, I think that's the aim. That's what we try to create.
Yes.
But I think our environment is the most important thing, right? Because when we're in Teachers College, well, I guess here it's a little different because you all are in your classrooms before you go to Teachers College.
Well, some people go privately before.
Right.
But the majority would be in classes.
So it might be a little bit different here, but I do think our work environment has a big impact. Because what I learn in university is all of the theory and the way things are supposed to work and how we're supposed to do it. But then I get into my first school and we're met with reality. Like, yes, this is a great idea and we should do it this way, but we have all of these barriers over here and we can't do it this way. So this is what we're going to do. Right. And so you learn sort of the reality of working in a school in that first job. Like, let's say I go to a school and this school is really, really interested in getting high marks on their CPEAs. And so they develop a scheme where once the children turn in the tests, they start erasing all the answers and filling in the correct answers. Now, I'm a first-year teacher. I don't know what's right or wrong. I mean, I've probably got a thought that, we shouldn't be doing this. But if this is the way everybody's telling me to do it and nobody at the school has a problem with it, maybe this is the way it works in reality, even though we shouldn't. And so I conform to it. And then I get the mindset that there's nothing wrong with that. So 20 years later, I get caught doing this. And I don't even realize that there's a problem with it because this is what they did at my first school and it's what I've done for the past 20 years. What do you mean it's wrong?
And sometimes you stand out as the black sheep because you refuse to conform.
Yep.
You refuse to conform. And when you refuse to conform for, obvious reasons, that deep down you believe this is wrong and you don't want to be a part of it, then you begin to be seen as that troublemaker,
Yep.
not a team player.
Yep.
You believe you know more than others, you know, and
Yep.
all of those little labels come. And if you're not a strong person,
Mm-hmm.
you find yourself, it's almost like you're being diminished,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and maybe excluded, maybe. So
Yeah.
sometimes in
And that's exactly it. We at the very least get socially punished for standing out because, like you said, we're going to be excluded or whatnot because we're the troublemaker. And sometimes, depending on your leader, we might even get retaliation, is what we would call it. The principal doesn't like that I'm causing all these problems. The principal knows that I've been teaching grade K for the last 5 years and I have no interest in teaching grade 6. So they move me up to grade 6 to try and make a point.
yes, and that's quite unfortunate. Quite unfortunate because, well, again, if I was in the place of a school leader, I don't know, to me, the amount of respect that I would have for somebody who's willing to stand out that way, because deep down you would know that it's wrong, you know? Even if you're doing it because of,
Right.
you know it's wrong.
Yep.
You know it's wrong. But because you want to stay on that course for your obvious reasons, you will make it seem that that person who does not want to conform is the person who's wrong.
Yep.
But in your mind, you know that
Yeah.
person has not done anything wrong.
Right.
But to me, I would really respect somebody like that, you know, because it means that the person is ready to stand for what he or she believes. And
Yeah.
in that case, I am seeing that it's the right thing, you know?
Yep.
Yes, but we don't necessarily get it that way.
No, and culture is a powerful thing. Like, it's incredibly difficult to change a culture because the people in that culture, like, especially like here, most of the teachers here have been working together for 20 years or more. And so there are certain ways that things are done here that people are used to, that people like, that people are happy with. And so for someone to come in from the outside and try and disrupt a tradition is going to be resisted, right? Because, well, you're new here, you don't understand, but here at Bonds, this is the way things are done. And no matter what culture you're looking at, you'll see that. Like, you can take a C player. So let's take a teacher that doesn't really want to go the extra mile, doesn't want to put in the effort. They're happy to just kind of show up and collect their paycheck. And you go put them at a high performing school where everybody in that school is putting in the extra effort, doing after school programs, stuff in the morning, whatever. That C player, they're they might not reach the level of everybody else at that school, but they're going to perform at a much higher level because to continue to be that person that just shows up and collects a paycheck is going to be so uncomfortable because nobody there is doing that, that they're going to conform. And in that opposite sense, if you have that other culture where nobody puts in the effort, being the star player, you're going to go down to everybody else's level because eventually, like, you'll start out trying to, bring everybody up. But eventually, if you're the only person, you're going to run out of energy and you're just going to join them.
Yeah, or you may be getting so much resistance that you just say, well, you know what? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because just for doing the right thing, you may be jeered at, you may be,
Right.
Yeah, so to just avoid all of that, you just
Yeah.
conform.
So one thing I like to do when I'm out, like, looking for work or a new job is try to get a sense of the culture of the place I'm going. Because you can put all the right things on your website, say we're this kind of place where we support each other and we listen to ideas and whatnot. But it's easy to write those words. It's much harder to live by them. And so if I can find somebody that works at the company and ask them a couple of questions and really get a sense for what's the reality, because it's never fun to get into a job and, like, 2 weeks on, you already know you're not going to make it to the end of the year.
Yes.
I think just to kind of close out our conversation here, what's your process for innovation? Like, obviously, we've talked a lot about you are an innovator. You're always looking for new ideas, and we've done things with Literacy Committee and so on and so forth. What's your process? Like, how do you innovate?
Well, for me, what happens in the classroom is what informs me. So based on what I see going on, I pick up on areas that, I would probably need to look into, places where I see that students need help. So I point out, I pull out these places. I do a bit of research on it, you know. Um, One of the main things is to focus on what really keeps the children engaged, and what I could do to increase that engagement, and motivation, and then get whatever result that I want.
Yeah.
So it would be a process of first, analyzing what's happening, pull out the areas that I need, to do the work on, brainstorm for ideas. Of course, so many ideas will come, already. Then narrow that down,
Yeah.
to the more feasible, realistic ones.
Yeah.
In some seminars that I have attended, I have learned that it's always wise to, when you brainstorm, ideate. When you ideate, you come up with as many ideas as possible, and then you narrow it down. Don't limit it to anything, because you just never know.
Well, and that's it. If we stop, like, I might look at an idea and I'm like, that's impossible. But then I ask myself the question, like, if this were to work, what would have to happen? And sometimes just by asking myself that question, something comes to mind where it's like, actually, we might be able to do that.
Exactly, yes. So I do the ideation, and then, narrow it down to the more feasible one. In some cases, I would discuss the idea with somebody else, bounce it off and see, get other ideas from people, of course.
Yeah.
And then from there, I begin to work on my stuff. I get my resources, put my stuff together, do the prototyping. I try it out, and then, sometimes it works, sometimes it does not work.
Right.
And I'm still happy with trying it. At least I know there's satisfaction in, I tried something.
Yep.
And then I go back to the drawing board, and it's like, it's just a cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
What is it? Do you know Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena speech?
No.
Okay, I don't have it memorized, so I can't quote it word for word here. But essentially, like, he's talking about two people fighting in the arena. And, these two strong men that are fighting, they're going to have people out in the stands, and the people out in the stands are criticizing them, right? When you watch cricket, you watch the players, and you're like, oh, what do you mean you hit it that way? Why didn't you catch that? We think we can do it so well. But it's the person in the arena. Like, when you're out innovating and ideating and whatnot, you might have somebody on the sidelines criticizing you. But even if your idea fails, you've learned something from just going through that process that person criticizing has no idea. They're not trying anything. And how he closes it out is something to the effect of, it's much better to be somebody who's gone out there, tried to do something, and failed. You've experienced something. Whereas the person on the sidelines that's never tried anything in their life is living a very sad life because they've never had that experience of knowing either victory or defeat.
And I could very well see that, yes, because even at times when I may have tried something and not gotten the desired results, I don't even feel like a failure. I don't even feel like a failure, because as a matter of fact, there are times where I would just tweak that same thing, and try to modify it in a way to try to make it work. For me, it's like a never-ending process, so I honestly do not mind. And the fact that I'm doing my own little thing, it's not like I'm on a stage there and everybody's watching and I'm forced to feel like a failure. It's not like that. I try my stuff in the class, see how it works with the students, bounce it off. I have had other teacher friends try it as well, that kind of thing. And of course, again, with the like minds. If it doesn't really work, they're not going to feel like, oh my God, you just really waste my time. It's not like that. It's like, you know what, I didn't really get the results that I wanted, or maybe just a few students, but we can try that way. We can try that way. And I love that. I love that. So I embrace it. I don't see it as, wasting time or failing or anything. I just see it as an ongoing process. I'm here living and breathing, and I will just continue.
Yeah, there's a book out there called Loon Shots. and it talks about those people who have done something crazy. Like the whole world told them it can't be done, it's impossible. Statins help to control cholesterol, right? And the guy that created statins, it took him like 20 years to create them. And for a majority of those 20 years, people were telling him he's wasting his time. In professional circles, he'd be laughed at because he believes this thing that couldn't possibly be true. And, through it all, like what they say in the book is that any great idea, anything that's going to transform the world, it has warts. So, like you said, you try something and it doesn't work. And the answer isn't to give up and try something different. The answer is to look at the thing you tried, figure out what stopped it from working, and like you said, make those little tweaks until you get to the thing that works. Find the warts on it, get rid of those, and your idea is going to work.
Yes, there's that, as you're speaking, there's that movie that comes to mind. For some reason, I cannot remember the name, but it's that movie with Taraji. You know the Taraji that.
I never heard of Taraji, huh?
Oh, wow. Okay. She was married to this guy who was working on some battery thing. And for years, he had been trying, spending money on it, his little earnings, and so on. Eventually, I think they lost their house, or some house that the parents left for the lady.
Okay.
But long story short, after how many years, they ended up getting divorced, and it was messy. And then after how many years, it finally worked.
Okay.
Yes, and he got, I think, billions or something like that for it.
Yeah.
Yes, but at that time, he and the lady had already gone through so much, they were no longer together. But he still went over to her to tell her that it finally worked.
Yeah.
Gave her a little check and so on, but it was really testing.
Yeah.
At times in the movie, it's like I would be on the lady's side. Other times, I would be on the man's side. Like it was just a back and forth. But it was just a case of him trying and trying, and he really believed in it.
Yeah.
And just never gave up on it. And eventually, after so many years, eventually, it was successful. Yes.
And you think of the people that make those breakout successes, the people that have reached that level where everybody says, I want to do something like that. I think they've all had those moments where they risked it all. Yes. They failed. No one was supporting them. They had no direction. They were all on their own, but they were just so committed to their idea that they pushed through it, and eventually they got to that point of success.
Yes.
And the reason it's not something everybody can do is because when you get to that point where you've completely failed, you're face down in the mud, and everybody around you is criticizing, saying, I told you so, whatever, most people are going to walk away at that point. But that's not the point to walk away. That's the point to double down. That's the point to really push forward.
Yes.
Because the solution is just there. You've already spent 5 years on this. It's just around the corner. Don't quit now when you're just about to make that breakthrough.
Well, the thing is, you, together with everybody else, you don't know that you're just around the corner.
Right.
It's just that, whatever that you believe so much in that you're willing to go on.
Yeah.
You really don't know. Well, you believe it's going to work.
Yeah.
You don't quite have it there yet, but you know deep down that it's going to work. So you're pushing through. Everybody else around you is saying, look at that, you've tried, you've lost so much, but you keep going. I will find that movie, Mr. Blaine, and I will send it to you so you can watch it.
And
yes, this is just it in essence.
You have to have that faith, because that's it. Maybe I've worked on it for 5 years. The guy that created statin, it took him 20 years. He had to have that dogged determination for 20 years, ignore all of his colleagues who were laughing at him, and continue to believe and develop for 20 years before he succeeded. And most of us just aren't going to be that committed. So looking at you, I mean, have you ever had that moment, that sort of face down in the mud, you tried something, it didn't work, you were kind of on an island by yourself, but have you ever experienced that?
Not so much. I would say no.
Okay.
I mean, even if I have experienced something not really working right away, but I don't think I have had to dig deep and to keep going, like for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe I have not really come up with that innovative idea that will, that will cause all of that.
Well, what about people just pushing back against you? You have an idea that you want to do. And like you said, sometimes you go it alone because you can't get support. But have you ever been there where you go it alone and people are telling you not to? People are telling you that's just maybe not even everybody, but you've got some people that are saying, like, why are you wasting your time with that?
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, I have um, professionally, I have had ideas, and sometimes the people you expect to embrace it, um, they don't,
Yeah.
and the the troubling thing is the reason why they don't. Sometimes it's not a case where they genuinely believe that it will not work, but it's just a case where they see you as this thing might be successful and whatever, and you may end up being in the spotlight. So I'm not going to be the one to really push for that to happen for you. You know, yes. Now sometimes for that idea to really work, it would have to go through certain channels. And because of that block, that barrier,
Yeah.
I mean, no matter how much you push for it, it just does not go through.
Yeah.
So you end up just not doing it. I have had that case. And then I ended up now, in that case, it was more wider scaled. I think that is one of the reasons why I have more stuck to just on a smaller scale, like just class level and not necessarily school level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You kind of got the freedom to do what you want in your class. But if you want to do something school level, you've really got to get that support.
yes, yes. So and not everybody, but where it matters.
Yeah.
Yes. So
And so, how do you handle that when you're sitting there, like you're committed to an idea, and you've got people telling you, like, you're wasting your time, it's not going to work, it's not worth the effort? Like, what kind of impact do you allow those people to have on you? Do you take their feedback to heart? Do you ignore them? What do you do to sort of deal with that kind of negativity?
honestly, at first, I used to take it. I used to take it kind of hard because here I am, trying to do something not for myself, but for maybe the school or a group and so on. And well, I saw it as selfish reasons. For selfish reasons, you're going to block it, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it would bother me. It would bother me. But as time passed by, I learned to separate like personal self from the more professional, self.
Yeah.
And then I would tell myself, okay, well, this was maybe like a professional kind of blow, but it doesn't change who I am. So, personally, I will not allow that to affect me.
Yeah.
I am going to change it to what I have control over, divert it. So, whereas I cannot do it with the group or where I would need to go through a particular individual or individuals to do it, I will just forget about that part and focus on the part where I have full control over it and I can see, see it through. Yes. So at first it used to bother me, but after a while I just dismiss that. And I actually encourage people to dismiss it too. Like, if you have an idea, do not let somebody else, not unless you know that what you're doing is right. It's for the greater good. Don't let people just put a damper on that and just turn your light off.
Right.
Find a way around it.
Yeah.
Yes, you don't carry the person like a burden. You let it go. People will be people.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. And then you keep that light burning. You do what you have to do. You channel it somewhere else because you don't want that to change who you are.
Right.
You don't really want that to affect you that way. So
No, Brene Brown says like what you should do is you identify a list of people who are allowed to criticize you. And these people are people who truly care about you, people who want to see good things for you, and I mean, people who can give you feedback. So it's a small list. You're not going to have 70 people on this list. You're going to have like 5 or 6 people, a small circle of people. And whenever those people give you criticism, listen to it because they care about you and they're giving you criticism because they want to see good things for you. Anybody that's not on your list, ignore their criticism because there might be people not on your list that are giving you good feedback, but by taking in all of the feedback from everybody you hear from, it's going to tear you down. It's going to kill that light, like you said. Limit it to just a handful of people who truly care about you and ignore the rest of it.
and I have actually done that. Well, not created the list, but in my head, I have told myself, whoever it is that the criticism may be coming from, whether that person is important enough to me or not. Yes, I have told I mean, it's like, okay, you're criticizing. Is it really coming from a good place? Or you're just doing it for, so some of them I just dismiss. And we know the people that we have around us. We know the people who will tell us what we don't like to hear, but we know it's coming from a good place. We know, and we know how to take that. Right? And the people who care about us, usually when they criticize, they give you the reason, they help you understand where they're coming from. The other people who will just tell you, no, we cannot do this, and they don't really have any valid reason, there's nothing to support what they're saying, and so on, then definitely that's a no-no. Okay, that's how you feel, whatever. Especially if you know that it has to go through you, or you know that you're an important player in that whole game. So they want to stamp their authority, or they want to show you that they can make or break, that kind of thing. So I know exactly who to dismiss and who to really listen to. There are some people I will go to because I know they are not the yes no people, because I don't want you to just tell me yes or no. I want you to tell me yes because if whatever, or no because I don't just tell me, or they side with you for everything. That's a good idea. And then if you were to ask them, what do you think is so good about it? They cannot really tell you anything much, I like to get feedback from people. I like to get feedback from people, so I know exactly who I can take that feedback from, so I can dismiss the others easily.
Well, that's it. It's so important. We need the feedback because the feedback is kind of how we grow, right? Like, how are other people perceiving me? And as we talked about earlier, other people have expertise that we don't. But finding a way to make sure we're taking in the good while blocking out the bad is really the trick to being able to survive as an innovator. Because when you're innovating, you're not doing things the normal way. And there are people who are really comfortable with the normal way that are going to push back against any innovation, any deviation from how it's always been done. And so we've got to be able to sort of block out the criticism from those people. So let me ask you, earlier I heard you say you were talking about at the time you thought it was for selfish reasons when people would like challenge or push back. So that book, Crucial Conversations, has that been a valuable book for you? Like, have you learned?
Oh yes, very much so, Mr. Blaine. Now, when I get that maybe kind of pushback, or not really the response that you would get from somebody, I look at it differently. I look at it differently. Someone I was speaking to once spoke about the stories that we tell ourselves. Yes, Mr. Blaine. So right now, I make a conscious effort, to kind of prevent myself from going there. Because I believe before reading that book that you gave me, it was easy for me to just jump on that, especially now I don't blame myself for it, because of experiences that I have had, But then now I can still look at those experiences,
Yeah.
but handle it differently.
Yeah.
You know, it may be a conversation, it may be reaction, it may be whatever
Right.
it is.
Right.
I read it a little differently now.
Yeah.
Now I am a little more empathetic
Yeah.
because I'm thinking now, okay, you may be, okay, supposing you were disrespectful to me, I don't necessarily just see you as that disrespectful person. Now I see you as a victim of something. That doesn't mean I 100% just take it from you,
Right.
because you know my personality,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I am less jumpy.
Yeah.
You know, I see you as maybe some experiences that you had are what have you behaving that way.
Yeah.
Maybe you felt threatened by
Yeah.
whatever because of, you know, something that happened to you or something, or a similar interaction with somebody, you know, that kind of thing. So now I take it differently. I pause, I view it differently. I think I even listen to it differently. Truth be told, some of it I don't even listen to.
Okay.
I've learned to just kind of like separate, compartmentalize, you know, and I have not finished the book.
Okay.
I have not finished it, but I'm really looking forward to reading, you know, more and more.
Well, that's the idea. We don't. I mean, we use the idea of stories to help understand. Like you said, maybe you've had some past trauma or whatever. It doesn't mean that person's behavior is acceptable. And, you know, assuming positive intent doesn't mean that negative intent wasn't there.
Right.
It's just a way to help us to kind of understand better and then figure out the better way to interact.
Yes.
Because if somebody is disrespectful to me and I immediately respond by being disrespectful to them, the conversation is not going to go anywhere. Somebody has to be able to stay in a stable state in order for a productive conversation to happen. And sometimes, like you said, when we want to push things up the chain, we meet resistance, and we've got to be able to have a productive conversation to get that idea pushed up the chain.
Yes, I from reading that book, I feel like I have really grown. But then it's only when I actually get some kind of, you know, conflict or
Yep.
that I will know how much I've grown. So I think I'm always looking forward to that kind of conflict. So I can test myself. Yes, I mean, that would be the practical. That would be the practical. You know how we learn the theory, and then the practical comes along, and then we have to show how we can apply.
Yeah.
So I've not really had the practical. I mean, little bits here, not anything too significant. I've not really had the chance to see how much I can apply it when it actually happens.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of looking forward to a conflict so that I can.
What I can say is, like, in the beginning stages, you're probably not going to practice the tools in the moment right away, because you still have to sort of, like you said, you've read the theory, but now you've got to change the behavior. And what happens is, like, the initial conflicts that come up, you still respond like you always responded. But then afterwards, you reflect on them and you start, like you said, thinking about, okay, what are the stories I'm telling myself? And then as you get more comfortable in that reflection phase, eventually it gets to a point where, like, in the moment, all of a sudden the reflections are happening in real time then.
Yes, I hope whatever opportunities I get to see how much I've learned, I hope it comes it comes gradually, not like one big thing, because
Well, and like you said, you're having, like, little conflicts where you get to practice it a little bit, right? And those are all helping you learn. You don't have to have the big blow up. I think what you were kind of just saying right there is, when the big blow up comes, you want to have the skills.
Because I mean, Mr. Blaine, you know, I'm not that person who just takes whatever is thrown at you.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
so I mean, I don't want our viewers to think that I'm just, you know, that's not it. But but
But you're not going to let yourself get pushed around. If somebody is really yelling at you and disrespecting you and whatnot, you're not the person that's going to sit there quietly and listen to it.
No.
You're the person that's going to speak up. You're going to jump in and push back.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when we push back, we want to make sure we're doing so in a way that we can keep it productive. Even if the other person's being toxic, we don't want to cross the line and like drop to their level, right?
yeah, well, yeah, let's see how that will go.
Well, keep having these little experiences, making your progress, and when the big one comes, you'll be ready for it.
Yeah, so that's the plan.
All
That's the
right.
plan. Yes.
Well, I think we've gotten through everything I had for us. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Every teacher should aspire to be an innovator.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that hard,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it may be very small, it may be big, you know, I mean, it depends on what needs you see, you know, that arise in the class and how you can address it. At first, when I heard of innovation, I used to think of big ideas and a lot of high technology and all of that. That's what I thought of at the time. But then now I know better. Now I know it's the simple little things that you try differently, you know, to get the results that you want. So we can all be innovators. We can keep trying. The world is evolving. Our classes are changing.
Yeah.
So I think we cannot just remain stagnant. We have to try, you know, to go with it and just try our best, share ideas, learn from others, and you know, we'll be on our way.
Look for all the little problems that you have throughout the day and come up with little solutions. You don't have to change the world. You can just make your day a little better every day.
Yes. Yes, that's right. That's right.